Now let's talk about the crown jewel of my Christmas presents this last year, and that would be this, the Let It Be 5 LP Deluxe Edition. And it includes a new hardcover book as well, a 100-page book. Now, how could it have anything different than we've already read about Let It Be in the Peter Jackson book or in the original book that first came out or in the anthology? What's left to be told? Want to find out? Let's drop the needle. In the last episode, I discussed Paul's Lyrics book, which contained details of 154 of his songs, including some from Let It Be. I also talked in detail about the book Get Back, that contains transcripts from the new movie and further insight into the incredible pressure that the Get Back concept of rehearsing and recording a new album and then playing those songs live put on the Beatles. As I said, the new Let It Be 5 vinyl release includes a new book as well. And the question is, how is this different than the book that was in the original box set 50 years ago? Well, first off, it's hardcover, and it's a 100-page book. It contains new photographs, and it contains a lot of new information. There is a foreword by Paul McCartney. In it, he says, "As always, we came together as a band. We enjoyed the business of making music. It's what we've always done, and the thrill is there. Even though we were being filmed doing it, which was sometimes intimidating, we did manage to learn a bunch of new songs." When he writes about the new film, he says, "It also shows the wonderful times we had together, and combined with the newly Let It Be album stands as a powerful reminder of this time. It is how I want to remember the Beatles." And in the introduction by Giles Martin, he said his dad, George Martin, was asked what the credits on Let It Be should be, and George said, "Produced by George Martin and overproduced by Phil Spector." There also is Glenn Johns' remembrance. Glenn says, "I came up with the idea that the album could be kind of a fly-on-the-wall audio documentary. On the way home one evening, I took the 8-track tapes I had and did a very rough mix of this idea. It included several of the songs they had rehearsed, interspersed with false starts and snippets of lighthearted banter. The following day, I gave each member an acetate, telling them it was just an idea. They all came back the next morning, and to a man, dismissed it. I have to say I was not surprised, and it was immediately forgotten." Months later, as Glenn was working with them on an album that would become Abbey Road, he writes this, "They took me aside and said they had reconsidered and I should go ahead on my own and put together my original idea of the album that they had all heard on the acetates. I completed the LP and delivered it to the band. The film was still being edited, so the album was put on a shelf where it remained until now." And a section I really like is a track-by-track breakdown of each song. It's very interesting. Here is the listing for I Got a Feeling. Pretty cool. In the book it says, "I've Got a Feeling" is a good example of the continuing partnership. The two writers brought contrasting emotions to the song. The happy inspiration for Paul was his flourishing relationship with Linda Eastman. For John, 1968 had been a really hard year. His marriage had broken down, he and Yoko experienced the stress of police drug raids and were subsequently charged with possession of cannabis. A month later, Yoko suffered a miscarriage. But John's song, "Everybody Had a Hard Year," blended right in with Paul's "I've Got a Feeling." This book is a welcome addition to the history of the documentation and the music that came from Get Back and Let It Be. Okay, now let's look at the 5 LPs that are in the box set. This is the first one, and it is a remastering of the original Let It Be album that Phil Spector produced. To my ears, it sounds much brighter and much crisper. And yeah, it'll be fun to do a track-by-track comparison between the new remix and the additional mix. I got a feeling this is going to be a lot better. But also, we need to do that track-by-track comparison against another album. Wait, another album? Yeah, and now this one, I don't actually have it on vinyl. This is the CD. And it is Let It Be Naked. Paul McCartney always hated what Phil Spector did with Let It Be. And he contended that it would sound a whole lot better if they removed most of those strings and the overproduction. So years later, they did. The resulting was Let It Be Naked. And in fact, Ringo has been on record saying, Paul was right, this is a much better record. Next up are two albums full of jams, outtakes, conversations, rehearsals, very cool stuff. On the Let It Be Naked album, there's an additional disc called Fly on the Wall, which has conversations, outtakes, and so forth. But it's only one disc, and a lot of the tracks that were on that one are not on the new double album, and vice versa. But you know, one thing I was a little bit disappointed about is in watching Peter Jackson's movie, you hear the Beatles do something called Commonwealth, which is kind of Get Back, but with political lyrics, and it's really quite hilarious. Does not seem to be on the double album. The fourth album is the Never Have Been Released Before Get Back album, as mixed by Glenn Johns. He put it together with the original concept of what the Beatles wanted, but when he presented it to them, they all hated it and shelved the project. And they gave the tapes finally to Phil Spector. So this album was the original idea behind what Get Back was supposed to be. But as I say, it had never been released until now. But the tapes that became Glenn Johns' Get Back were bootlegged at the time. And here are three different bootlegs that I have. This one is called Get Back. Shows a picture of the Beatles on the cover. And it's got an interesting quote down at the bottom. It says, "We wish to thank all the people connected, both directly and indirectly, to this project and its fulfillment. And a warm thanks to the Bailey brothers for their assistance." Now, the Bailey brothers are the bootleggers. And that is signed with the name John, making you think that John Lennon had actually approved this, which, of course, he didn't. Now, the bootleg looks to be taken from Glenn's tapes, because the song order is about the same, but obviously the quality is nowhere as good. The bootleg includes Across the Universe, which Glenn Johns' version does not, but his does include Get Back as a reprise for the last track. The second bootleg I have has no real cover on it, and again, it's just more of what Glenn Johns was working with. The audio quality on the bootlegs, of course, is not great. And then the third one, now this one comes with a cover. It's got pictures from the book, and it says More Get Back Sessions. And some of the same tracks, but also some different ones, like Maxwell's Silver Hammer, Besame Mucho, and even something called Paul Raps. So as you can see, there were bootlegs of those sessions floating around for years, but the audio quality, as I said, was abysmal. So it's really great to finally be able to hear what Glenn Johns wanted to do. And then finally, here's an EP. This has only got 4 songs on it, and they include Across the Universe, I Me Mine, Don't Let Me Down, and a remix of the original single of Let It Be. Now, here's an interesting thing about how memory can play tricks on you. I remember hearing a version of Let It Be at the time when it came out, which was different than the versions we had all heard. In this new version that I'm talking about, Ringo's drums are much more pronounced, and he's got a dum-dum, dum-dum, dum-dum kind of cadence going on in the second verse, which just adds incredible amount of texture to the song. In my memory, I'm thinking that I heard the original Let It Be song on the album, and when I heard the single was the mix that I remember. So with the new set, where you get the new single being remixed again, I'm going, cool. I put it on and I listened to it, and you really got to strain to hear Ringo's drums as I remember. Now, I know my ears are getting old, but I'm going, wow, what does that mean? So now what I'm going to have to do is go back and listen to the other 2 versions. The version on the Spector album originally, and the version on the Giles Martin remix of the Spector album, and then the version on the 45, and actually the 4th version, which is now the 45 remastered. And who says you can never hear anything new? in Beatles music. Okay, so I in fact have done that now. I went back and played the original Phil Spector release, and on Let It Be There, yes, you can definitely hear Ringo's drumming on the third verse. It's quite pronounced. On the remaster that Giles Martin just did, it is the same, but it seems a little bit diminished. Now, when I go back and listen to the original single, no, it's really diminished there. On the remaster of the original single, yeah, it's the same. It's really mixed down there. So what I'm talking about, the fa-dum-bum, is on the original LP, and it's most pronounced there, but you can hear it on the remastered. And as I say, it's on the start of the third verse. Just a couple of months after this creative sprint of making Get Back under such incredible pressure, the Beatles all reconvene at Abbey Road Studios. And they call up George Martin and say they want him to produce a proper studio album this time around, with overdubs and studio magic included. And of course, that's when they start working on the album, which will become Abbey Road. As always in Beatle time, there's an amazing amount of things happening in a very condensed period of time. After the 24 days of recording the sessions of Get Back, then Michael Lindsay Hogg went to make his movie, Spector went to try to do his version of the album, and that all had to happen because United Artists wanted to put out a Beatles movie. But it took 15 months. And in those 15 months, not only had the Beatles recorded the phenomenal Abbey Road, but then, of course, they had broken up. So when the Let It Be album comes out and the movie comes out, it's really very anticlimactic, and it leaves everybody with kind of a bad feeling in their mouth about how the Beatles ended. But in actuality, it was not the last Beatles album. Abbey Road was recorded afterwards, but Let It Be was released after Abbey Road. As I said, the original concept behind Get Back was a daunting task for the Beatles. It is a phenomenal statement to their creativity that they were able to pull this off. And now, with all this treasure trove of new Beatles Get Back, Let It Be material, we can actually witness this creativity as it happens. I wish we had this type of film footage of them creating each of their albums. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, that's just one of my Beatles fantasies. But I'll keep listening to their music, and you can bet I'll keep it rocking. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.